The room smelled of money and perfume. Crystal glasses caught the light. Polished shoes clicked against marble floors. I did not belong there, and I knew it when I walked in wearing my good church blouse and my sensible black shoes. But Tabena had invited me. He said it himself. "Mama, come. It's an important night." So I came. I pressed my dress twice. I wore the pearl earrings his father gave me the year before he died. I carried the small handbag I only take out on occasions that matter. I found my son near the far wall, surrounded by young men in expensive suits. He was laughing, his head thrown back, a glass in his hand. I felt proud watching him, my chest filled with something warm and quiet. All those nights I worked, and here he was. I walked toward him. His friends turned. Then I heard him say it. "That's not my mom," light like a joke.
She's
She's an embarrassment." Laughter followed. Warm, careless laughter from men who did not know my name. I stopped walking. I looked at him. He met my eyes for just 1 second. I smiled. I said nothing. I turned around slowly and walked to the parking lot, took out my phone and made one quiet call. The call lasted 4 minutes. I sat in my car with the engine off, the hotel entrance glowing through the windshield. Outside, well-dressed people moved back and forth. Inside, my son was still laughing. I spoke calmly. I gave instructions. The person on the other end, my lawyer Adiz, listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked one question. "Are you sure, Ngozi?" I looked at the hotel doors. "Yes," I said. "Cancel it."
She paused, then typed.
I heard the soft click of keys. "The automatic transfer to the joint management account," she said. "Monthly. Running since 2017. "That one," I said. "Only that one for now." "Done," she said. "Effective immediately. No further transfers will be processed." I thanked her and ended the call. I sat a moment, my pearl earrings catching light through the glass. I was not angry. Not exactly. What I felt was quieter than anger. The feeling of a door closing. A soft, final sound. I started the engine and drove home carefully. I did not cry until I reached my kitchen. Then I cried for a long time, sitting at the table where I had fed him every morning for 18 years. Then I stopped. I washed my face. I went to bed. My husband Chukwemeka died 11 years ago. He left a modest insurance payout, a small property, and one specific instruction, that whatever he left should be used for Tabena's future, quietly, without Tabena ever knowing the source. Chukwemeka understood our son. He knew Tabena's pride even when the boy was 17. "If he knows we paid for it, he will not value it," he told me from his hospital bed. "Let him think he earned it. But make sure he has the tools."
So I did.
Adiz helped me set up a small trust in Chukwemeka's name. From that trust, over 12 years, I funded the private school that put Tabena on the radar of good universities. I funded 3 professional certifications. I paid for the networking program that introduced him to his first mentor. Tabena thought he was talented and lucky.
He was talented.
The luck I manufactured. That night, after washing the tears from my face, I opened the locked drawer in my bedroom and removed a folder. It was labeled in my own handwriting, "Family Assets and Beneficiaries." I set it on the kitchen table.
I did not open it yet.
I simply rested my hand on top of it and thought carefully about what came next. Tabena's life looked like a magazine. His social media pages were filled with photographs of himself in tailored clothes, at rooftop restaurants, beside imported cars. Women commented with fire emojis. Men asked where he bought his shoes. What most people did not know was how much of it was performance. The car in his most popular photograph belonged to a friend he borrowed it from for one afternoon. The apartment featured in his videos was his, yes, but the furniture was on a payment plan he had not finished. 2 of the brands that put his face on their platforms came through a network I had quietly introduced him to through a business associate I trusted. I never told him. I wanted him to have a footing in a world that does not give footholds easily. But now, 3 days after the hotel, I opened my laptop and wrote a short message to one contact. Nothing confrontational. I was stepping back from a certain advisory role. One sponsorship arrangement Tabena held was tied, distantly but firmly, to my name. I sent the message. The system would take a few weeks to process the change. I closed my laptop and went to water my garden. I did not rush. I had learned long ago that the most powerful things happen quietly.
5.
The first message reached him on a Thursday morning. I know this because he called me that same afternoon, and I could hear the confusion underneath his casual tone. I had not warned him anything was changing. That was deliberate. Mama. He kept his voice easy. Have you heard anything from Viridian Capital? They sent me a message saying a business partnership is paused. Something about a compliance review. I haven't heard anything, I said. It's probably nothing. Bureaucracy. He laughed a little. Probably, I agreed. We talked for a few more minutes about ordinary things. He asked if I was eating well. I said yes. He said he would try to visit soon. After the call, I sat quietly with my tea. The truth was that the Viridian connection existed because of a recommendation I had made 2 years earlier to someone who trusted my judgment. Tabena had walked into that room because a door had been opened for him. He did not know who opened it. He did not know it could be closed. He would find out soon, not because I told him, but because the structure would show the cracks that had always been there, hidden under my steady, invisible hands. He called someone he trusted and was told simply, "Your guarantor is no longer listed." The holding company was called Obina and Associates, my late husband's middle name. Most people who dealt with it never connected it to me. That was intentional. Chukwuemeka had taught me that the quietest kind of power is the kind no one sees until it disappears. For 12 years, Obina and Associates had acted as a silent guarantor on several agreements Tabena entered. Lease arrangements. One early business registration. A partnership that required a credible third-party reference. None of these were dramatic individually, but all of them were load-bearing. A building can have several hidden columns. Remove them one by one, and nothing collapses immediately. But the structure loosens, then shifts, then begins to lean. After the hotel night, I called Adiz again. I asked her to begin quietly removing my name from the secondary agreements. Not all at once. Carefully, one at a time, the way you remove stitches from a wound that has properly healed. Or, in this case, from a wound that never closed because someone refused to acknowledge it was there. This will take several weeks, Adiz said. I know, I said. There is no rush. The point was not speed. The point was permanence. I was not making a threat or staging a scene. I was simply removing what had always been mine to remove. It started small. These things always do. A meeting with an investor contact was rescheduled once, then again, then quietly dropped from the calendar. Tabena mentioned this to me in passing during a phone call, the way you mention weather. Irritating but expected to pass. Then a collaborator he had worked with on 2 projects stopped returning messages promptly. Days became a week. Tabena assumed the man was busy. Then his mentor, a man named Festus who had guided him through his first serious business year, canceled a quarterly lunch with a one-line message and no rescheduled date. That one Tabena could not explain away. He called me that evening, and his voice had a different texture. Not panic. Not yet. But the first layer of certainty had been removed, and underneath it was something he did not recognize because he had never felt it before. Uncertainty. Festus has never canceled on me, he said. People get busy, I said. Not Festus. Not without explanation. He was quiet for a moment. Something feels off, Mama. Trust your instincts, I said. But don't assume the worst. I meant both of those things in their different ways. I was not lying to him. I was simply choosing which truth to offer, and when. He was 4 years old when his father brought home a broken radio. Chukwuemeka sat with him on the floor and let Tabena touch all the parts, naming each one. Tabena fell asleep holding a small copper coil in his fist. He was 9 when I worked overnight cleaning shifts at the government office building for 7 months to pay for his admission exam classes. I told him I was visiting a sick relative on those nights. He was 14 when I sold my gold wedding bracelet. Not the ring, I kept the ring to cover the gap between his scholarship and the full school fees. I told him the school had offered a discount. He was 19 when I skipped medical checkups to keep his university account full.
He did not know any of this.
I had been careful. That evening, I sat in the sitting room with a photograph from Tabena's childhood. He was maybe 6. He was laughing at something outside the frame, his whole face open with joy. I looked at the photograph for a long time. Then I picked up my phone. I went to his contact and changed the save name. It used to say, my son. Now it said, Tabena. I set the phone down. The room was very quiet. He came on a Saturday. He knocked twice and let himself in with a spare key he had never returned. I was in the kitchen. I heard him come in, heard him call my name, heard his footsteps cross the sitting room and stop at the kitchen door. I finished what I was doing before I turned around. He looked well, physically. Good clothes. Composed face. But his eyes moved differently. They scanned the room before settling on me. Mama. He smiled. I was in the area. Sit down, I said. I'll make tea. We sat at the kitchen table. I set his cup in front of him. I sat across from him with mine. I did not rush the silence. He spoke about business, a new opportunity he was developing. He did not mention Viridian or the cooling contacts. He spoke as though everything was normal, as though he had simply dropped in for tea. I listened. I nodded. I asked no pointed questions. Finally, he said, Everything okay with you, Mama? You seem quiet. I looked at him across the table. I said it simply, without bitterness, without tears. You said I was an embarrassment. I believed you. He opened his mouth. Then he closed it. The kitchen was very still. The message came 4 days later. Long, very long. Tabena had always been good with words when he needed to be. He wrote about pressure, about the image he felt he had to maintain, about how the comment had been thoughtless and not meant the way it sounded. He wrote that he loved me. He wrote that he had always known my sacrifices. I read it carefully.
Twice.
The word sorry appeared once, in the middle, tucked between an explanation and a justification. It did not sit still. It kept moving, becoming something else, sorry, but sorry because sorry, however. A real apology does not need company. It stands alone. It does not explain itself into a different shape. I set the phone face down on the table. I sat there for several minutes. Then I made a decision, not in anger, not in haste, but in the clear and steady way I have learned to make decisions that matter. I called Adiz. The property on Adissa Close, I said. Begin the process I mentioned. The legal hold, she said. Yes. Understood. I thanked her and ended the call. The property was one Tabena had been using as the registered address of his primary business. He did not own it. I did. Real estate moves slowly when lawyers are involved. In this case, it was useful. The legal hold on the Adissa Close property took 11 days to process after my instruction to Adiz. During those 11 days, I went about my life normally. I watered my garden. I attended my Thursday evening women's group at church. I slept well, which surprised me. On the 12th day, Tabena called. He kept alarm out of his voice, but I heard the effort it cost him.
Mama.
There's a problem with the Adissa Close address. Some kind of legal hold. My business filings are flagging it as restricted.
I see, I said.
Do you know anything about this? It is my property, I said. Adiz is handling some administrative matters.
A pause.
What kind of matters? Nothing you need to worry about right now, I said. Another pause, longer. I could hear him thinking. How long will this take, he asked. These things take time, I said. Before he could speak again, I ended the call. Not because I was angry. Simply because I had said what needed saying. He had been told. Not everything. Just enough to understand that the ground he had always assumed was solid was, in fact, mine. And it was shifting. The social shift was the one I had not fully planned, but should have expected. Professional networks are built on confidence. Not the confidence of the individual, but the confidence others have in that individual's foundation. When the foundation becomes uncertain, the network senses it before anyone can explain why. Tabena noticed it in small ways first. Invitations that did not come. A group chat he had been central to went quiet when he posted. An event he expected to attend happened without him. He called and described it with careful language, the language of a person who does not want to say what they are actually thinking. I listened. It could be coincidence, I offered. It doesn't feel like coincidence, he said. What does it feel like? I asked. He was quiet for a moment. Then, it feels like someone turned something off. The words sat between us. I did not respond to them directly. I asked if he was eating well. He said yes. I said good. After the call, I sat with his words. Someone turned something off. He was right. But he had not yet understood who, or how completely, or how long the switch had been in someone else's hand. That understanding was coming. A contact told him plainly, "Your backing is gone." I have watched people lose money before. What they lose first is never the money. It is the story they tell about themselves. Tabena's story had always been, "I am a self-made man." He told it carefully, in the gaps between his photographs and his professional profile. He never said it directly. He didn't need to. The whole performance of his public life said it for him. Now the performance was developing problems. Small inconsistencies. Moments where the image and the reality did not line up as smoothly as before. He became restless. I could hear it in the frequency of his calls and the way his voice moved from topic to topic without settling. He started looking up public records. Business registrations. Trust filings. I knew because a D's flagged it. A search had touched the outer edge of certain documents. He was following a thread. I let him follow it. The truth was not something I needed to hide. It was something he needed to find himself, at a speed his mind could absorb. If I told him, he would argue. He would question. He would reframe it. But if he found it himself through his own search, with his own hands, he could not reframe it. He would simply have to sit with it. He called on a Wednesday evening. The careful casualness was gone. He sounded stripped down the way a person sounds when they have been running and have finally stopped. "Mama," he said, "I found something." "Tell me," I said. He described what he had found in the public business registry. A holding company. Multiple trust connections. A name appearing as primary controller across several structures that had quietly shaped the last 12 years of his professional life. "My name. Is it you?" he asked. "Obina and Associates. The trust arrangements. The guarantor records. Is that you?" "Yes," I said. A silence. "For how long?" he asked. "Since your father died." "Since you were 17. Another silence, longer. I sat with it and did not try to fill it. "Everything," he said. The word was very small. "Not everything," I said. "Your talent is yours. Your work is yours. The doors, many of those I helped open." He did not respond. "Tabena," I said. "Are you still there?" "I'm here," he said. Something in his voice had broken open. Not violently, but the way it would splits along the grain, following a line that was always there. He hung up without saying goodbye. He needed time. And now he finally had a reason to use it. He came to my house on a Friday. He did not call first. I heard the gate, then the knock. I was not surprised. I had been expecting this visit the way you expect rain when the sky has been holding it too long. I opened the door. He was standing on my step in ordinary clothes, not his usual careful presentation. He looked like himself, the self underneath the performance. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped back to let him through. He walked into the sitting room and stood in the middle of it, looking around as though seeing it for the first time. Then he turned and looked at me, and I saw something in his face I had not seen since he was a teenager who understood his father was really dying. He was overwhelmed. Not with sadness, exactly. With scale. With the weight of understanding something he had not understood before. "I didn't know," he said. I thought I had done it myself." "You did much of it," I said. "But not all." "No," I said. "Not all." He sat down heavily on the sofa. The panic in his body was visible, the kind that comes not from a threat arriving but from a foundation rearranging beneath you. He did not come to fight. That surprised me. In the weeks before this, I had half-expected anger. Accusations that I had manipulated him, hidden things that were his right to know. I had prepared for that version of this conversation. Instead, he sat on my sofa looking exhausted and said, "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because your father said not to," I said. "He knew you." "He knew I would," he stopped. "He knew you would refuse it," I said. "Or not value it the same way. You needed to believe in yourself. We gave you the tools and let you believe they came from your own effort." He was quiet for a long time. "The hotel," he said finally. "What I said." "I know what you said." He looked at his hands. "I don't have an explanation that doesn't make me sound terrible." "Then don't explain it," I said. "Just understand what it cost." He looked up. "What did it cost?" I held his gaze and said it clearly. "I didn't take anything from you. I just stopped holding it up." He closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. And my son broke down at my kitchen table. We sat together for almost 2 hours that afternoon. I made more tea. I let him talk. He moved through shame and confusion and something that looked carefully and slowly, like the beginning of real understanding. Not the performed understanding of his apology text. Real understanding, the kind that settles in the body, not just the mind. At some point he asked, "What do I do now?" "That depends on what you mean," I said. "The business. The things that are frozen. Can we fix it?" I looked at him carefully. Not with coldness. With honesty. Some of it I can restore. Some of it is gone and should stay gone. "Which parts?" "The parts built on performance rather than substance," I said. "Those were always going to fall. I only moved the timeline." He sat with that. "And the other parts?" he asked. "The other parts depend on who you decide to be from here." He looked at me for a long moment. "You're not going to help me the same way anymore," he said. Not a question. "No," I said. "I'll be here. But I will not hold up what you are capable of holding yourself. Not anymore." He nodded slowly. This, I thought, was what adulthood looked like when it finally arrived. The public part happened in the way these things always do. Not in a single moment, but in the accumulation of small noticeable absences. The influencer deal that had been the centerpiece of his online image for 2 years was terminated in the 5th week after the hotel. The email was polite and brief. The brand cited a strategic pivot. But in professional networks, when a brand quietly exits an arrangement, people notice. They talk. Rumors moved through the spaces Tabena occupied. Nothing dramatic. No one was saying his name in ways he could confront. It was quieter than that. The kind of talk that moves in the spaces between conversations. He told me about the influencer termination in a flat voice. "I know," I said. "You knew it was coming?" "I knew it was possible," I said carefully. He did not ask me more about it. I think he was beginning to understand that many things he had experienced as random or bad luck had been connected to a structure he could not see clearly. And that structure was mine. He was not angry anymore. The anger had moved through him and left something else in its place, a quieter, more serious attention. He was finally paying attention. I sold my small secondary property, the one near the school where Tabena had spent 3 important years, on a Tuesday in November. It was a straightforward sale. Fair market price. Adiz handled it efficiently, as she always did. The proceeds went where I had always planned, into a community education fund I had been building for 4 years, quietly, the same way I had always done things. I did not tell Tabena beforehand. I did not need his permission. It was my property, acquired through my own work. It had served its purpose. Now it would serve another. That same week, I changed my phone number. Not because I was hiding, but because I needed to choose deliberately who had access to me now. I gave the new number to my church group, to Adiz, to my 2 sisters, and to 3 friends I trusted completely. Tabena did not receive it immediately. He found this out when he tried to reach me. He told me this later. He said it was the moment he understood, in his body rather than just his mind, that the removal was real, that I had not simply been hurt or quiet, that I had actually gone. Sometimes a door does not slam. It simply closes. The letter arrived at his apartment by post. I had written it by hand on 4 sheets of plain white paper. I wrote about his father. about the radio and the copper coil, about the school fees and the sold bracelet and the overnight shifts. Not accusingly, just clearly, the way you tell a history that deserves to be told correctly. I wrote about love, what it looks like when it is quiet and consistent and asks for nothing in return. I wrote about the hotel. Not at length. Just, I heard you. And I believed what you said, not because it was true, but because I needed to stop pretending it carried no weight. Near the end, I wrote about what I hoped for him. Not his career or his image. For his character. For the man I believed he could become if the comfortable scaffolding was removed, and he had to build from his own ground. The last line took me 3 attempts to write. In the end it said, "You don't lose a mother when you insult her. You lose her when you stop seeing her as human." I folded the letter, sealed it, and sent it without a return address. I was writing to leave him with a truth that would stay. He found the church on his own. I did not lead him there. I had attended the same congregation for 22 years. The same Thursday evening group, the same familiar faces, the same songs I knew by heart. It was never a secret. He had simply never paid attention to the details of my life the way a son might if his mother existed fully to him. 3 months after the hotel, he showed up at a Thursday evening service. He sat in the back. I did not know until one of the women in my group told me quietly afterward. She said he sat through the whole service, spoke to no one, and left before the lights came up. I sat with that for several days. He was not looking for me the way someone looks for what they want. He was looking for me the way someone looks for what they have lost. He went back the following Thursday, and the one after. I was not there for either visit. I had switched to the morning group, not to avoid him, simply because the morning light in that room is gentler, and I have earned the right to choose gentle things. He was learning where I had been all along. Spring came. The mango tree in my garden produced well that year. A woman in my church network mentioned she had spoken with Tabena at a community event. She said he seemed different, quieter. He had asked after me, not in the way people ask when they want something, in the way people ask when they are simply wondering. 2 weeks later, I was at a Saturday volunteering session at the Neighborhood Learning Center, helping teenagers with reading comprehension. The children knew my name, and several brought me drawings. I was crossing the courtyard between sessions when I saw him. He was standing near the entrance gate, not moving. He had seen me. I was carrying a stack of workbooks. The sun was in my face. I was wearing my work clothes, nothing impressive, just comfortable and honest. He did not come toward me. I did not go toward him. We looked at each other across the courtyard. He was too far for me to read his expression fully, but I could see his posture. He was not the hotel version of himself. He was not performing. He was looking at me the way you look at something you are not sure you deserve back. I nodded once. Then I went back inside to teach. Adiz has been my lawyer for 19 years. She is not a sentimental person. So when she paused during one of our routine calls and said, "Ngozi, I want you to know something," I listened. "The foundation you built," she said. "Most of my clients would have used that capital to secure their own comfort. You used it to build a ladder for other people." She mentioned something I had not thought about in some time. Over 12 years of the trust's operation, the education fund attached to it had supported 14 young people besides Tabena. Students from families without resources who had received quiet, indirect help through bursaries, guarantee arrangements, or access to networks they would not otherwise have reached. None of them knew my name. Tabena was not a project. He was one among many I had tried to help. But he was my son. And he was the only one who had looked at me in a room full of people and chosen not to see me. The other 14 had never been given that particular chance. Most of them had simply moved forward and built something real and lasting. He had been loved more than any of them, and it had, for a time, cost him in ways the others had not known. He sent a message through Adiz. A short one. He knew by now that she was the channel that reached me. He did not ask for money. He did not ask for the structures to be restored. He did not negotiate or request or demand. He said, "I understand now what I lost. I don't mean the business support. I mean the thing underneath it. I am trying to understand how to deserve the version of you that existed before I said what I said. I don't know if I can, but I am trying. Adiz read it to me over the phone. I was quiet for a moment. He's growing, I said. He is, she agreed. I thought about the last line of my letter. About the difference between losing a mother to an insult and losing her because she was never seen as fully human. He was beginning to see me.
Slowly, but genuinely.
What he lost was access to a love with no conditions, the kind that does not keep a record, does not announce itself, and does not ask to be acknowledged. And with real loss comes the only thing that can follow it, a real beginning. I still water my garden in the mornings. I attend my Thursday group and Saturday sessions at the Learning Center. I talk to Adiz twice a month and to my sisters every Sunday. My life is full of the things I built quietly on my own terms. I have not replied to Tabena's message. Not because I do not intend to, because the right time has not arrived, and I have learned that timing is everything. He is working now, a real position with real accountability at a firm that does not know his history or his image. He started 3 months ago.
Adiz told me.
He did not ask her to. She told me because she is my lawyer and my friend. 3 new young people entered the education program this year. None of them know my name. I do not need them to. I have thought about what I would say to Tabena if we sat across from each other again. Not the panicked version. The version that is quietly emerging now. I think I would say very little. I would make tea. I would sit across from him. And I think that would be enough. I did not lose a son. I released a man who chose pride over love, and I chose peace over pain.